Gareth Kay may just be the most cynical and brutally honest person in the advertising world. As the chief strategist at the Goodby Silverstein agency, he's outspoken about what he thinks is right and wrong with the industry. He spoke to us at the recent Cannes Lion Festival of Creativity straight after an address to a packed auditorium about what he thinks the advertising industry should look like when, in his words, it grows up.
What a surprise, a bunch of advertising people getting worried about their jobs. What that means is it's about not having less people. I think it's about bringing people into the industry who've got some different mindsets. I think it's about people who are good designers, good technologists, maybe are good at stand-up comedy, for example. We have an amazing bunch of folks at Goodby Silverstein who came from a stand-up comedy troupe in San Francisco. And they're brilliant because they have a bias towards building on what other people do, so you're really collaborating, and they're quick and they're funny, and it's an awesome thing to have as talent. And they just brought a very different type of skill set into the agency. We've got folks who come from advertising agencies still, but we also have people who have worked at Best Buy doing kind of retail marketing. We've got people who have been debate captains at universities. We've got YouTube stars who just made amazing stuff that people chose to watch and spend time with. I think there's lots of different types of talent that we have to try and attract to the industry. And I always get very worried about people who, go to advertising school for their university degree, because it'd be much more interesting to actually have an adjacent skill set or an understanding in people rather than just studying the art of advertising. Yes, some of that stuff's important, but if we just have advertising people or people obsessed by advertising, all we will ever make is what we've made so far. You have meetings where all you look at is other ads of your competitors or other ads that are won at award shows. So your frame of reference is immediately narrowed. And so all you're doing is trying to kind of make a better version of what's gone before, rather than go, I heard this really interesting thing today, someone was saying this, and it taking you on a journey. The reality is we work inside culture, so if we're not moving at least as fast as culture, we're going to become increasingly irrelevant. And I really believe over the last couple of decades, we are moving nowhere near as fast as culture. And of course, over the last 2 decades, huge, massive technological change. Yet, if you look at the kind of history of advertising, you can look at the work that won here in the first Cannes Lion 60 years ago and the work today, and it's by and large the same. It's not that different. And that concerns me because advertising operates inside the world of culture, and I think we're becoming increasingly less interesting and less relevant to people. And I think the biggest problem is that the kind of gap, if you like, between what the commercial imperative is and what the creative solution we end up offering is getting wider and wider. Because what happens is you have a chief executive who will talk about the business need to a marketing director. He will then reframe that as an advertising need for the advertising agency, and the ad agency will do the kind of stuff they know how to do. So the kind of link between what's needed for the business and what the problem is you're trying to solve and what you're making at the end of it, it kind of gets broken. It's far too tenuous, far too indirect. I think our job is to get back to what's the real problem we're trying to solve and think of the most interesting, creative and effective way to go and solve that. More and more clients, in my experience, particularly in the States, are having a roster of agencies working on a project basis so they can try and match the talent for the problem, because the agencies themselves can't work out what talent they need internally to go and solve that problem. It puts a lot of pressure on the client, I would argue, to have a really clear point of view about the brand, so all the agencies produce work that feels like it comes from that world, and also puts a lot of pressure on the client to be able to go and integrate all the ideas. I think it also as well does impact the agencies, because it becomes a bit of turf war that goes on where, you don't want to show an idea in front of that agency in case they go and do something and take all the marketing dollars to go and run against it. So it does become a challenge. There is a point of view that goes, what's happened to the media space in a large way, kind of disintermediation, could happen to agencies, because you could see clients who go, I will set the strategy inside the client, and then I will hire the creative talent, the freelance creative talent, to go and solve this for me and have the right architects working on these different problems. And if that becomes the case, what is the role of the agency anymore? And the moment the role really comes down to the fact that they have the talent, and the only way to access that talent is to go through the agency. And I could easily see a situation where, as more and more creative people, for example, go freelance, why would you hire the agency? Why not just have that relationship with the creative people? The Kodak moment is the point of view about what happened to Kodak, the photography company, who spent about 15 or 20 years in denial of digital photography, saying it's not as beautiful as a Kodachrome moment, and then discovered in the same week that they filed for bankruptcy, a digital company who basically had algorithms that made Kodachrome moments were sold to Facebook for $1 billion. So they basically ignored stuff going on outside them that could put them out of business. And I think the agency model's in a similar place at the moment, where there are things going on outside the agency world which, if we don't pay attention to them, could cause us some significant issue. We have that moment where we can choose two paths. It's a bit like the Matrix, the movie. There's a red pill and a blue pill. Which one do you want to go and take? We can keep on doing what we're doing, and I believe that's going to lead to kind of a painful walk into irrelevance. Or we can choose to really think about what it is we do, what we make, and the value we create, and reinvent and transform our industry. And I really hope we choose that option rather than the former. I think it'd be a really exciting thing to go through. And I certainly don't want to spend the rest of my career trying to kind of mitigate the decline of a once great industry.
Coming up on the programme, my best and worst ads of the week, and we'll get the lowdown on a brand new business title.
News that moves. eNCA.com.